As we continue our time of meditation, we focus on the power of order. We feel the power of order in the arrangement of music. Hallelujah. In gratitude and appreciation for the organization of sounds so well put together in order to lift our spirits and tickle our souls. Hallelujah. And gratitude. I'll share a meditation on the power of order by Reverend Bronte Colbert. I call upon divine order for balance in my daily journey. If I'm feeling overwhelmed with responsibilities or life feels out of balance, I turn away from outer appearances. I picture my life as a beautiful path, a journey of discovery and joy. One step at a time, I move forward into that which is mine to do. I see all aspects of my life in order against a backdrop of gratitude, spiritual purpose, and direction. If I am wishing for something that has not yet appeared, I trust that my good easily comes to me in divine timing. I see my body working in divine order. It is healthy, whole, and full of energy and life. I take time to appreciate nature, its beauty, balance, and perfect timing. I delight in the symmetry of a seashell or the layers of art in a cloud. As I create a sense of order in my home, work, and activities, I discover balance and peace. And let's just sit in that feeling of balance and peace for a few moments in the silence, connecting with Source. And as we bring our awareness back to the presence of this moment, I trust that you feel the vibrational energy and power within you, within your heart, the music of your soul. And I affirm there is one presence and power in my life. All else aligns with this truth. I claim divine order now. Thank you, Barbara. If you go on your computer and you type in the 12 powers, And maybe you have to put the 12 powers of man or not, I'm not sure. This is what I do, and one of the options it'll bring you to is unity.org. And then if you click on that link, it'll bring you this really nice information on the 12 powers. I always look there to get my information of what color to wear. Eventually, I'll just remember. It's nice to have friends that will support you. In any case, that meditation is on that site, and there's some other information that's very nice about the power of order, in this case. I encourage you to go there if that might be part of your spiritual practice. So the power of order, you'll find that it says there that grow in order by cooperating with spiritual law. I'm going to be talking about that. The affirmation is, my life is balanced and in order, all is well. Order is the intelligence of the universe expressing through each of us. The disciple is James, the son of Alphaeus, who represents harmony and balance available through centering our awareness. The color is deep green. And the location, of course, is to bring everything to your center. So it's your navel, which is the center of you. Divine order. How often have you heard someone say, everything is in divine order? How often have you been skeptical? I mean, is everything in divine order? And is this even a yes or no question? Which brings me to the first of 3 points that I want to make today and leave with you. And that point is, we can increase our curiosity in our journey by taking if questions and converting them into how questions. So ask not if something is true for you, yes or no, but how something is true, which is a much more expansive way to be curious. So, like, for example, don't say, do I judge people? Yes or no. Of course, if I say no, I'm probably not telling the truth. But more accurately and more expansively ask, how am I judging people? And by the way, judging people is a very important thing to do. We seem to put negative attachments to certain words, and if someone calls you judgy, it's not usually a compliment. One thing that also helps curiosity is relaxing and relieving the negative attachments we put to certain words and phrases so that we can openly explore, how do I judge people? So point number 1 is change if questions into how questions. Anyway, regardless, if you ask, is everything in divine order, or how is everything in divine order, your answer to that question is going to depend on your perspective. Well, is everything in divine order? Well, let me see. How do I look at that? What is my perspective? Your perspective is based on your beliefs. So for a person who thinks about divine order from the God I learned about in Sunday school, kind of an authoritarian, predestiny type God, I'm going to have a different idea of divine order than if I believe in a God more aligned with unity beliefs that's an inside to out God. A God expressing through me, through you, through us. And also the power of free will. That I choose my path from infinite opportunity as opposed to following a script that was written by somebody else for me that I may or may not be aware of. So as I looked back to the unity.org, and there's some notes there, and I paraphrased them. The notes are from an author named Winifred Wilkinson Hausman. And her book is one of her books. I don't know if she has more than one, but it's called Your God-Given Potential. And she has some great ways of explaining order. So these paraphrasing her words, all life forms other than humans, produce results which are expected of them by the virtue of their nature. They simply follow instinct, whether it's a flower turning to the sun, an ant getting everything into their anthill for the winter, my dog chasing a squirrel. Some dogs doing more than chasing squirrels. Those poor squirrels. So everything, all life follows instinct, basically, and they do fine. Except humans. Humans are different. And what is different is humans have been given the freedom of choice. Humans alone, as co-creators with God, can think consciously, make decisions, and determine the directions their lives will take. We, humans, are charged with this ability to think, reason, and choose wisely to establish an orderly growth for ourselves as God's highest creations. We do this by awakening and training our center for order. All right, how fun is that? You know, it just seems like can we really have fun if we need to clean up our room? I mean, getting orderly but we're going to make it fun. And here's how we're going to do it. Because we're going to change our perspective, or I'm going to invite you, actually, to adopt a perspective that I've been playing around with myself. And that perspective is spirituality is life. You know, during my journey, some people have claimed to me to be more spiritual than religious. I hear that a lot in unity circles, actually. And my answer to that is, I hope you're both spiritual and religious, because they're not alternates or substitutes for each other, at least not the way that my perspective is. So I'll help with that by saying my perspective is spirituality is who you are. It is you being you. The totality of your being. And I'll just say for today, I'm going to go at least from birth, or maybe even conception, to shortly after your last breath. I'm just going to look at that part of your experience. I know there's lots about before life and after life that we could bring into a spiritual discussion. Not today. We're going to keep things orderly. Spirituality is life. Spirituality is not merely a part of you. It's not simply one aspect of you. Your spirituality is the totality of you expressing in every moment as you. In movement, word, tone, attitude, mood. Spirituality is not the peer of our physical, emotional, and mental functions. Spirituality is the foundational source that fuels our earthly demonstration through these tangible functions, tangible channels. So from the perspective of spirituality is life, one sees themselves as a spiritual being creating a human or earthly experience. From the perspective of spirituality is life, one truly embraces the belief, I am. I am a living expression of the Creator. I am a vessel containing the full potential of my source. I am a channel demonstrating the power of my source as me. God expressing uniquely as me. Now, if I'm making it sound too complicated and too big and too epic and too grand, I'll simplify it by saying spirituality is simply you being you. That's all you have to do, is breathe and follow your heart's desire. When I was in my 20s, just doing the things you do in your 20s, you roam around, you look at things, you stop in curio shops. I did. Someone gave me a pin that we found in one of those, you know, where they have all the neat cards with the funny sayings, and you get the sarcastic birthday card for your best friend, and you both laugh because you know it really reveals the truth of you. I digress. Someone in one of those places bought a pin that I put on the jacket. I had a jacket back then, had a lot of pins on it. It was the 80s. The pin said, Enjoy life. This is not a rehearsal. I needed that message then, and it's been good advice ever since. It remains useful. That, to me, ties into spirituality is life. Every moment is a spiritual moment. As mundane as some moments might feel, your expression of life is magnificent and precious. In every moment, you are demonstrating the outpicturing of God's idea of the ideal person, the Christ. Life is not a dress rehearsal. There are no do-overs, no instant replays. Every moment is unique unto itself. In every moment, we are expressing our current best expression of the Christ ideal. So that's the second main point for today. Spirituality is life. The demonstration of my spirituality is me being me in every moment of my life. So spirituality is being. Religion is doing. Religion are practices that I do that hopefully encourage and expand and nurture my spirituality. Belief, by the way, is a choice. What you believe is something you choose to believe. And faith, then, is, well, I call it courage. It's confidence. Faith is confidence that's a combination of courage and patience. I have to have the courage to be me, regardless of my external situation. And the patience to allow life to unfold, my life to unfold as me, through me, even as I'm clumsy doing it. I have to sometimes allow enough time for divine order to fall into sequence, at least as I can integrate it into myself. Patience is probably the one thing that I didn't have in the 20s that was really what that button was trying to tell me to get more of, so that I could enjoy life. Enough about me. In the book, Your God-Given Potential, Winifred Wilkinson Hausman states, to develop divine order in our lives, we must learn to cooperate with spiritual law. Let's begin by cooperating with the part of spiritual law, which is the idea that you are a child of God. I know we say that, but not but, and. Can you just let yourself accept and feel that? Because so much of what you've heard so far doesn't support that. And there's elements in what the Fillmores, or Charles at least, called race consciousness. Actually, I heard Emmett Fox use that term too. So, and what is race consciousness? It's not inclusivity. It is more like human collective consciousness. It's like those things that we just believe are true because if enough people choose to believe something, it can sure seem like it's true, even when it's not. A lot of other talks to explore the deep meanings of truth. You are a child of God. Whatever that means, and whatever that means to you. A descendant of the Creator, by law, inheriting the nature of the parent. If you are a child of God, you inherit God's genes. His abilities, skills, his, her, whatever, there we go, there. Embrace that truth. And here is the truth that comes from inheriting God's nature. You are sufficient and you are unlimited. If I think of the one thing that crosses my path about people struggling to know that they are a child of God, it's the feeling that they're not enough. You are sufficient in all things and at all times. You often need to be patient to allow the clarity of that sufficiency to show itself. And we are not patient. We are often impatient. sometimes it just takes a little while for the mist to clear and for us to see our truth in a situation. You are sufficient. You are enough. Your only requirement is to be you as you are every day. You are unlimited. The power of the Creator is within you, ready to be revealed, guided by your imagination and fueled by your love. You are sufficient. You are unlimited. One of the reasons that you might have picked up this idea that you're not enough would be comparing. Teddy Roosevelt said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." When one listens through the perspective of God I was introduced to in Sunday school, the message I heard about myself was not so reassuring about my sufficiency. In fact, most of what I was interested in doing as a child and as a teen seemed to be displeasing to God. And this is all in the lines of comparing myself to what I'll just call the Christ standard. And in traditional Christian experiences that I had, Christ was this idealized thing, not human, above human, that no one could possibly ever be. And I was born in sin. Far from that. So the whole message just says that I was actually born into inadequacy, or born as inadequate. And that the journey of my life and the quest of my life would be trying to find my way back into the good graces of a demanding God. If that is the message we get from our religious leadership, is it surprising we might feel a little bit inadequate at times? So, since most of the things I did seemed displeasing to God, I went through this idea of trying to compartmentalize my life. And I've talked about this before. There's what I did for 6.5 days a week, and then the half a day a week where I went to church and was different. And feeling bad about all the things that I couldn't wait to get back to. Am I alone in this? So, there was a lot of pretense. And still, all of that part of my spiritual expression, still part of me, being me, at that clumsy part of the process. Most parts of the process are clumsy. We'll talk a little bit more. Anyway, those types of things that bring in concepts like shame and condemnation, I was wrestling with those accusations while I was trying to surf the wave of my desires and trying to find a path of righteousness. Still surfing. I often had to apologize, if often to myself. I had to confess to others how I wasn't acting in a Christ-like manner. And what I'm saying is, I was acting in a Christ-like manner, the best I could at that moment. Spirituality is life. There is no compartmentalization. There's not when Bruce is being like Christ and when Bruce is being like the devil. It's just me being me. I'm a child of God. So, as I said, comparison's the thief of joy. So I embrace the blessing of my divine inheritance. And I shift my perspective from comparing myself to an idealized Christ standard of perfection to embracing spirituality as life. I am an unfolding demonstration of the Christ, as clumsy as I may appear. And whenever I say I, you can just put I in there for you, okay? Just seems easier to say it that way. So we have before us the opportunity to love clumsy. Yes, we must love. I embrace my clumsiness as evidence of my faith, moving forward with confidence without assurance of success, The confidence of faith is a mixture of courage and patience. The courage to risk my life, risk being me, following my heart's desire, and patience. The patience to be gentle with myself while I explore the path of being me. I embrace my clumsiness and willingness to risk being messy. Sometimes my spirituality is like a dog or an infant playing in a mud puddle. There's joy, but there's mess. And you know what? It can all be cleaned up. Or it'll just dry and go away, and I'm like, geez, Cookie, you were so dirty before. Where did all the dirt go? Sometimes I find it later. I deny the thought of being born in original sin, or what I call original inadequacy. I deny the concept I am born in a deficit to my Creator, and my life's work is to arrange to get myself back into God's good graces. When I adopt the perspective of being an original sinner, I see God as a temperamental figure, apparently into self-loathing, seemingly so distraught and unhappy with his own work that he needs to arrange the death of his own son to come to terms. Really? I deny that idea of God. It doesn't work for me. I affirm I am a spiritual being, the outward expression of the divine in the physical realm. The only sin I can commit against God is to not recognize my divine inheritance. To adopt a perspective that diminishes myself by imagining myself struggling to be good enough for a capricious God who apparently has an indifference to cruelty. Nonsense. It's nonsense. My God is not cool. This type of thinking and its resultant behavior is out of order. Out of divine order. So how do I develop divine order? As I mentioned, from Winifred Wilkinson Hausman, to develop divine order in our lives, we must learn to cooperate with spiritual law. Order starts with the establishment of this concept in our thinking, our perspective, you might say, and then works from within out. We must first work on ourselves, and then from harmonious, happy feelings within, bring forth God ideas into our immediate environment. Order is the outgrowth of our complete agreement and cooperation with spiritual law. And this is a process that must be complete in mind, in emotion, and in action. Spirituality is life. We cooperate with spiritual law. We have our basic principles, and it starts with the first one, spiritual law. There is only one presence, one power in the universe, in my life, God the good, omnipotent. That's the spiritual law that we align with. There is only one, and that one is good. And we call this our second basic principle, I am of that source. I am of that God. The DNA of that energy is the DNA of me. I inherit the nature of my parent. I am eternally sufficient and unlimited. I am a living expression of love. Amen. I want to just mention as an aside that I've been becoming a little more familiar with Emmett Fox, thanks to being reawakened to him by a friend. And he's encouraging. And some of that influence from him is in this talk. Going forward. By the way, one of the things that would be useful is in some of the thoughts, like some of the things I just said was in his essay on the Lord's Prayer, which is really cool. And also there's a tool for staying aligned and in order, and it's called the 7-Day Mental Diet. If you're interested, you could look into that. So going forward, how will your life experience be going forward? Well, it depends on your perspective, doesn't it? I invite you to embrace the perspective spirituality is life. Every moment, a revelation of the uniqueness of God expressing through you, as you. As a group in August, our talks focused on embracing change as a gift of tomorrow. This month, we expand the idea of change into one of transformation. The affirmation is, what now? I am open to the transformation that comes from each experience. So I invite you to have that embracing of change and allowing the transformation from the perspective of spirituality as life. I invite you to use a change of mindset to transform your mode of being. I'm inviting you to do something that is probably simpler than you imagine. I'm inviting you to change and become yourself. You can drop all those pretenses. You don't have to say, well, I really wasn't giving it 100%. And somehow trying to explain away your inadequacy or your perceived inadequacy. Here's the bottom line. You are always giving 100%. Not 1 iota more or 1 iota less. You are totally you at all times. Spirituality is life. And apparently, as encouragement on your departure, I want to let you know it probably gets easier as you age. You accumulate experiences. Hopefully your perspectives are wizened by your clumsiness and overcoming. But David Bowie, do you remember David Bowie? He left us a legacy to help remember him. But he left us this encouraging message to carry forward. Aging is an extraordinary process whereby you become the person you always should have been. You get to that point where you're just like, I don't care anymore. I'm being me. My interpretation. Spirituality is life. Your spirituality is expressed as your life. Spirituality is not something you drift in and out of. Spirituality is not something you're working toward. Spirituality is not something you obtain. You already have spirituality. You are spirituality. Spirituality is life, and so it is.